Welcome or welcome back. I'm Chris.
And I'm Chris.
And this is Kris Greenhill's Garage, which is definitely named after me. It is cold. However, it is not freezing rain like it has been the last few days. So that's something. It's only in the high 30s instead of the low 20s with rain. So we are back working on Kris Jr.'s 1982 Ford Mustang GT, which I am no longer going to call Piece of Stang. Does this make you happy, boy?
Nothing you do makes me happy.
What a terrible son. We're going to yank out the back seat and the rear carpet and pull the rear panels, and we're going to try to get to the rear floorboard area where the back seat used to be and see how bad things are. If you watched last video, you'll notice in the last few seconds I kind of zoomed in on some of the rust spots, and things are looking less than encouraging back there. But we're going to get that apart and get to work. Here's what we're dealing with today. This is a regular drain hole. It has a rubber plug in it. This is some stuff we've previously cleaned up before we realized how bad it was. You can see where we've got some rust holes already eaten through the back here. But this is what really worries me. This, we can't see where this goes. And this is also our seatbelt support, which is very important to me. So we're going to get these panels out of here, pull the back seat and the seat belts, and see what we're dealing with. We're already having fun. This seatbelt bolt came out without much fight. You can see it started to strip just a little, but it finally came loose without much problem. That one will do nothing but completely strip. It did not budge at all. And now Junior is trying to use a wrench to get the seat bolts out from back here so we can get this back seat out. Well, we finally got the interior panel out over here. Here's the original factory insulation, which is now just flopping around. That took about 4 times longer than I thought it would. This almost turned into an entire video of just removing the interior panels. I wasn't sure we were getting actual work done today. That took forever. Here's all the old factory insulation. So we're gonna finish getting this apart and get it stripped down to bare metal and see what we can figure out. Here's our first full look at the bare back seat area. We knew about this. We'd already seen all of this. This is what we're worried about. Down in here, we're gonna have to get a chisel out and a grinder, start cutting all this old seam sealer off and see if we can get to the metal to try to see what is rusted out and what needs repaired. I'm hoping this is just surface rust and I can avoid this rear seat belt mounting area. The back seat mounting area looks good, except for some reason this is rusted out up here for seemingly no reason. This was actively wet. That's not a good thing. That side, somewhat similar. Doesn't seem to be as bad. Of course, we can't get that seat belt out right now. So I guess we'll work on that a little more, see if we can get that out of there. But this has me a little worried. We're going to have to start getting all the seam sealer out before we can move on. We finally got this seat belt out. As you can see, this is no longer a star drive. It stripped out so badly because it was rusted so badly that I had to hammer an Allen head in there to get it out. So hopefully Dorman makes a replacement one of those or something and we can get that locally. If not, that's going to be a problem. Here's the progress Kris Jr. has made so far. I started on this side earlier before switching to the seat belt, and the first thing I did was I accidentally punched a hole all the way through the floor into the ground. Things are not going well over here. It's looking like we may have to cut up the rear seat, the floor panel, and cut the bottom of part of the wheel well out and make custom patches. That is less than great. Not ideal by any means. This is not going well. Everywhere this nonsense seam sealer is, it held in water and rusted out. There's no reason for there to be gathered moisture up here. Any moisture should have just flowed down. This should be completely rotted out, if anything. But everywhere there was that seam sealer, insanity is just gone. This is going to be quite a big project. You can see down there, that is the ground. Here's the tire. That black stuff in the background is the tire. This is the wheel well, and it is crunchy. So this is going to involve actually jacking up the car, taking off the wheel, and attacking this from underneath and up top. Good times. How's your side, buddy? Oh, good. The ground and daylight. I was good. That's a good thing, buddy. I was afraid there wouldn't be any ground and daylight on this side, because that's definitely what we wanted, was more holes. We definitely needed more holes. Good job, son. I'm proud of you.
Thank you, thank you.
Here's the view from inside the wheel well. Just so far, this is what we have cut out just so far. All of this is going to have to go. You can see I'm just pulling it with my bare hand. That's a problem. Let's see what it looks like from underneath. That is less than ideal. I mean, it could be worse, but that ain't great. I can't even get under there. I'm just having to hold the camera and kind of wave it around and hope you can see this. Whew, we got our work cut out for us. The boy is still trying to clear the other wheel well on the passenger side. I'm over here on the driver's side, and I'm developing a plan for how to attack this. One of our main goals is to keep the car on the road as much as possible. So we're thinking we may cut out all the cancer, jack up the car, pull the wheel, cut out the cancer from the top and the bottom, and then just, I'm thinking weld in a patch panel here, a small one over here, and then just this, run a piece down here, weld it in, cut this out, and just patch it together, back together, one piece at a time, and do whatever we can. Like most things, it's probably not going to be correct, but we're going to give it our best. This actually worries me a little bit, being back here hooked to the wheel well and everything. Really want to be careful to make sure we have structural rigidity back here. We have to run some errands. We must go get dinner for the family. Then we have to go to O'Reilly's and see if they can get us new seatbelt bolts for the rear. And then we're going to hit up our local hardware store to try to get some sheet metal to try to weld on this thing. So I hate to say we're taking it for one last ride, but we're taking it for one last ride, possibly for the next couple of weeks. We really need to put it up on jack stands and do some cutting and welding, and it's going to be a slow process. Who would have thought that cutting more holes in the floorboard and taking out more insulation would make it louder in here? Weird, huh?
I don't know.
You can really hear that exhaust pop with new holes right above it. We're back. We have our new giant piece of sheet metal, and we're also running out of daylight, so we're going to get to cutting and grinding, try to figure out what all is going to stay and what all is going to go. We also got a new seatbelt bolt. Regular seatbelt bolts were like $13 a pop if you could find one. This was $3. It is a grade 8. And that is what these were from the factory. So good enough. You can see I've already started some of my cuts, but I can't really get to a lot of this till we get the car up in the air and get the wheels off. Junior's doing that right now. While he's doing this, I'm going to go ahead and cut out this square here that's not worth leaving there and trying to patch over. I'm just going to get rid of it. All right, you can see where I've cut the rot out of the floor panel here. I was trying to cut in here and I forgot that part of the unibody and the suspension was under here. So while this is open like this and I can reach this, I am going to clean up in here and we're going to paint that before we patch this all back up. Here's our first really good look inside the floor panel here. And you can see this is what I've cut out, and I can pretty much pull this apart with my bare hands. This is rusted through. We're gonna have to get all this liner off of here, this factory sound deadener and liner off of here to see what else we need to cut. All right, the next part of this, I'm getting the grinder and I'm trying to cut through all this rubberized coating to try to get to the bare metal so I can see the condition of all this under here. And if you're wondering what this is like, it's pretty much like burning a tire. It's going to burn away and put up a huge cloud, and you're going to have to breathe it, so hold your breath. But I'm trying to burn this away. I'm trying to follow the seam of the tire well all the way up to see how much of this is going to need to cut out, if any. I think I'm pretty much done cutting in this area. My work down here is done, down here in this corner. Like all too many types of operations, unfortunately some good metal had to be sacrificed to get the cancer out. This had to be cut and peeled back to get to the rust that was on the other side, but the rust did not come through here. This all looks good. Fortunately, I'm gonna have to weld that back. The good news is this seam here is good all the way up. The bad news is the seam here where the body meets the other part of the tire well all the way around is not looking so good. That is going to be a ton of work. I thought it was bad enough if this was rusted out. This is very good condition, just some mild rust at the bottom. But at least for this part, I've kind of got the sharp edges ground off of it. I'm going to hammer this back into shape, and I'm going to get ready to start welding this back together. Probably not till tomorrow since it's almost dark today. I just happen to have an old, thinner 22 gauge patch panel that looks like it'll fit right there perfectly. So I'm just going to do that. This doesn't need to be really thick. It just needs to cover the hole. We're almost done for the day. Unfortunately, we had a few more spots we thought were just surface rust. Hit them with the wire wheel and the metal just disintegrated around them. So we got to clean this up as well as I can. This was a lot bigger than the pinhole I thought it was, so they'll need some more patching there. This stuff and this are both multi-layered areas. Cut out the rot on the top layer. There's a little bit of rust on the layer underneath it, but we can't cut the entire top layer of the car out and get to every single little speck of rust. We're gonna hit that with some rust reformer and let it soak and take a look at it again tomorrow and see how it looks. Well, I was showing Junior how the outside molding of the car was attached here. And I touched this, and now we have a hole to the outside of the car. That is my finger outside the car. Oh, come on. Yeah. Oh, man. Because we're us, there's of course more bad news. There is more rust over here than we initially thought, not just that one hole. Man, we're getting some deterioration around the shock tower, which is not good. Also, this is the wheel well behind that hole I just showed you, and there's some serious rot going on in here. It's different, but just as bad as the other side. Good times. It's the next day. We are lazy and slept in because it's cold and we're tired. Well, we're back at it today, and Junior is about to get started on this. We're going to try to clean this up, cut away what we need, and meanwhile, I'm going to go and start welding the patch panels on the other side. Kris is grinding the passenger side fender, which is causing our rust hole to expand considerably. I have this clamped together about the only way I can, and I'm about to hit it with some weld. So, our inner fender is connected back to our inner portion of the unibody, whatever this is. It stuck all the way around. Sadly, I was unable to go up that crack and put that back together. I'm going to put a little piece of patch in there. I lack that kind of talent with a flux core, or any talent with flux core, or any talent with any other kind of welding. Here is the other patch panel. Just finished it. Not even done smoldering yet, but not too bad for me. Here's the next phase of my plan: to patch up this giant hole. I'm gonna have Junior cut a piece of metal out in this shape and run it down here and weld this in. And I know I'm going to go back through and make more patches like here and here, and I'm going to have to tie in all of this. But the main concern is getting rid of this big giant open gash. While Junior is inside cutting out our other patch panel, I'm going to come out here at the welder and I'm going to try to tie this in together a little bit from the outside. If not, I'll have to grind some more and I'll have to run a new patch panel to seal that up. I want to seal it from inside and outside. Here's that outside seam. I know it's hideous and ugly, but the cool thing is the inside of the car is inside and the outside of the car is outside, at least on this seam, not so much over here. But so this actually came together really well. Just a million little bitty tiny tacks, a little half-second burst, and it worked out pretty well in this thin metal. Here's the patch panel Kris made. Pretty much perfect with the cardboard. Let's see how this fits. The boy. I need to attach a patch panel to the car.
I'll get the metal self-tappers.
Good boy. And here is kind of the idea of this patch panel. We put one self-tapper in there to kind of hold it in place. We're going to kind of hammer it into shape. I'm going to try to go outside and hammer this up, bend that up to meet that, so I don't have to put a separate panel over here. We're going to kind of put this in place with a few self-tappers and go back to work. So I've kind of got this mostly in place with a few metal self-tappers, and on the outside I'm hammering it into place to match in here. Let me show you. This was a much larger gap. This was hanging way down here, the curvature of the other side of the floor, and I'm going to try to hammer this in place and weld it together. Stupid brake rotor in the way. Would have been done by now if it wasn't for the brake rotor. I am super dumb. I just completely covered up the seat belt hole. It is right here. I ran a drill bit, a small drill bit up through the bottom so I could find out where it was. Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut some metal away from that to get my hole back. Once again, I am dumb. My initial plan was not working, so I just got the cutoff wheel and just cut around the bolt hole. And now the bolt will go back in and problem solved. Perfect and beautiful. Ugh. We can't get this exactly the way we want it with just self-tappers. So we're gonna have to weld some of it in place, try to pin it down before we can work on the rest of it and sealing it up. All right, this is tacked in enough to hold it in place for now. We're gonna go outside and underneath the car, see what we can do out there. Here is the outside of the fender. We were just doing, I think what I'm gonna do is get the cutoff wheel and cut this flush. I'm not able to hammer that and seal that into one spot. So we're gonna do a patch panel on the outside and a patch panel on the inside. And that is what Junior is cutting right now. I know, my welds are hideous, but they're holding really well too. So I am happy with these welds. I'm getting a lot better at this thinner metal and stuff. I don't think I videotaped it, but earlier I primed inside of this hole, and now I've painted inside of it, and now I'm going to put the panel over it and weld it shut. I have this patch panel molded into place and kind of tacked into place, and watch this. I've burned through a couple spots already, but I'm learning how to patch my burn throughs. I've already done it twice and I fixed them, so I'm really proud of that. I'm going to finish up this patch panel while Junior cuts our patch panels for over here. Huzzah! Sure, it's ugly, but it's not a hole. It's one piece. Now I got to carry on and just finish this. Here's Junior cutting off all our excess metal down here. Here's the interior patch panel Junior made for in here. I'm gonna wedge this in here and try to, I'm gonna have to bow this and bend this just a little to try to get it to conform to the shape. But I'm gonna use this to patch up this gap here. If you do not have a way to, a machine to bend sheet metal, this is what I just did. I gripped it in the C-clamp and I bent it using this vice grip. And I just bent it a little at a time, and I kept holding it up in place and holding it up in place and checking out until it conformed really, really well. And I just did that with those little hand tools. And that ought to go right in there. You just need a little tack welding to hold it in place. Well, we got exactly one tack weld in this interior panel and ran out of wire. So we've got to go re-spool our wire. We're almost out of daylight. We do not have time for this nonsense. We're back at it. I accidentally had the wire speed and the heat too high. From reloading the wire, I had the wire speed all the way up and I burned through. Now I've got to go back and try to patch this. I haven't really been able to show my work. We're in a time crunch. But here is that external patch panel that Kris Jr. cut for us. And I've just kind of tacked it in. And here's its relationship to the floor and the interior patch panel. And yeah, we got a hole over there. I'm going to have to fill that from the inside later. I'm going to try to get this tacked up here real well so we can be done with this for the day before the sun goes down. We are almost out of time today. I want the boy to hit a couple of welds inside the car. I went back through this and ground these down. Let me see if I can get a better view. All right, here is that patch panel. And there's the seal to the floor. Yeah, it's not beautiful. We still have that hole right there, but I've got to patch that from the inside. That was not the job of this patch panel. So the boy's gonna hit some welds on that other patch panel. We're gonna call it a day. The sun is going down fast.
The helmet's not darkening.
It's hard to video the whole thing, but Junior finished tacking this down and he had a couple of burn throughs, and I didn't record it, but he actually went through and filled in the holes that he burned through. So he is learning. Good job, boy. Hit a coat of rust reformer primer out here under the fender well to hold this thing, and tied this thing over until I can come back in a few days. The boy is finishing tacking in our patch panel. He's done a great job. If he burns through, he goes back and he fills in the holes, as he has now learned to do. He actually kind of taught himself to do that. I mean, he saw me do it a couple times, but he went back through and patched up his own holes without having to need me to show him the technique. He just learned it on his own. Good job, buddy. That's it. We're officially done for the day. I sprayed some rust reformer over our welded panels. Here's the finished interior work. This is the one Junior did. Pretty good. We didn't even get to this side. So that's it for today and this weekend. The car's going to stay up on jack stands, and hopefully I'll get to it here in a few days when I have a day off from work. This turned into a lot bigger, more in-depth project than we were prepared for. We didn't even get to this side. We didn't get beyond just doing some grinding. We never got to come back over here. This isn't as bad as the other side. It's just a little different. I have to peel off some of that old metal, get in there, clean all this out, which I guess I'm just doing right now. But I'll try to get to all this here in a few days. Kris and I do not have a day off together for another 2 weeks. So I will probably be finishing up this project on my own. I'm back. It is 4 days later, 5 days later, something like that. Anyway, Kris Jr.'s in school. I'm off today. I was supposed to be off yesterday, but I wasn't. So I have exactly today to get this car at least in condition where I can put the wheels back on and drive it. I'm hoping to go pick up my daughter from school later. So let's get started. And good news, because I like to start my days off strong. I just realized I left my welding hood turned on and the battery's dead. So definitely starting off strong today. But before I can even get to welding, I have to re-strip this and re-sand it back down. I hated to leave it just exposed to the elements with raw metal because I didn't know when I was going to come back. So I put primer all over it, which was dumb, but I felt it was the right decision at the time. So let's grind this all down. This is not good. This is worse than I thought it was when I looked at it the other day. I've just gotten the wire wheel out and taken some of this primer off. There was some seam sealer down in here we thought was going to be okay. And as soon as I hit it with the wire wheel, I'm discovering new layers of rust. I'm discovering rust holes. I'm punching through new rust holes. And this is just the wire wheel. I haven't even gotten the grinder out. And this is where the interior and the exterior come together. This is 2 layers together. And as I'm wire wheeling it, I'm finding more rust and more metal is dissolving. And there's a lot more rust under here than I thought. And then there's this pocket in here. Let me see if I can get the flash to work. Yeah, I have put a small wire wheel in there to try to get into that, and look at that nastiness. You can see all the rust there, but that's where the fender is welded onto the body. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do about that. I don't even know how to tackle that. I'm going to start by blowing it out with air. Oh, whoa. Whoa. Oh, that's connected. That whole channel goes all the way through the car. That whole channel goes all the way the length of the car. And that is where we have some rust down there where I accidentally punched through with my finger. So this entire panel all the way down is one piece. So I'm gonna go blow it out from the other end also. That's not good. As soon as I did that, stuff starts shooting out the other end also. And this is up here in the front of the car, near where we've already done some welding. So this whole panel that's pinch welded and on here is pretty much rotten out front to back. Oh, good times, but you know what? That may have to wait until exterior restoration projects. There's one consistent. Everywhere we find rust where there shouldn't be any rust, that is seam sealer caulk right there. This is where the outside panel has been ground away to the inside panel, and this is the seam sealer putting the two together from the inside, and it's rusted out. And this where the wheel well is attached to the car, that seam sealer caulk, and there's rust under it. Everywhere we go, there's seam sealer, there's rust. Freaking Ford. Like I was just saying, I'm grinding this down, and this entire piece of metal, which was painted, looked good from the outside on this tip here, completely rusted out. And look, more of that caulk seam sealer nonsense. Every single place they put that stuff, the car just rotted away underneath it. Man, look at the relationship here. This is, I'm just grinding away rust until I hit clean metal, which, as you can see here, that it's not leaving a lot of good clean metal under it. But look, metal, rust. Oh, come on, zoom. Stupid camera. Zoom in. I can't get it to zoom. Metal, rust, caulk. Silver, brown, yellow. Look at that. Just every single place, there's just the tiniest little bit of that rust or that seam sealer caulk stuff. There's just rust all around it. Ridiculous. Just in the last few minutes, I've managed to make our interior hole larger from the outside. I'm still in the outside fender. And look, shocking, I know, but seam sealer, rusted out metal. The mission is to kill the rust and get rid of it. And, oh, dear God. Yep, I'm doing that. But it's coming at a higher cost than I thought. Oh my God. This is ridiculous. Every time I go just a little deeper, find a little bit more rust and have to cut off a little bit more metal and make my interior hole a little bit bigger. Well, curiosity killed the cat, or the Mustang in this case. I was like, there's one little speck of rust there. Let me hit it. And I ended up punching through this exterior piece of metal where they overlap, finding more rot. Oh dear God, man, there's crap all in there. Oh yeah, that's a problem. I'll probably have to cut a lot of this out. All I want to do is go like another millimeter just to see what that was and see if I get rid of that speck of rust, and I couldn't. And pretty much this entire panel's rusted out, so I'm gonna cut it off or just pull it off with my hands and see what else is underneath. Ooh. Huh. Apparently this inner channel is also connected over there. Interesting. I did not know that. There's just dirt and grime all in these little tucked away areas. It's not all rust. Some of it is dirt, which of course gathers and holds moisture, which causes rust. And then rust dust falls and collects on the actual dirt, making it worse. Well, I have this blown out with air about as well as I can. You can see where these two panels come together, the welded together. The weld is just rusted out. Just they're separating. But I think for now I'm gonna get a paintbrush and put some rust dissolver in there and just leave it be for a few minutes and go back inside and start working in there. This is what I get for taking shortcuts and making assumptions. I thought we were good over here, and this wasn't going to be nearly as bad as the other side. But as I was hitting more rust spots on the outside, I started cutting through to the seam sealer here on the inside, and as you can see, that's some ground over there and that's some ground down there, and this is ever expanding. You can see the rust here. Looks like it's going to come up here to about where this line of white seam sealer stops. So I gotta cut all of that out before I can even proceed. It is looking less and less like I am going to get this car back on the ground today. This just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So far I've discovered at least a little bit of rust up to here. Now I don't know if that's rust reform and forget it up here, or if it's actual rot, and I have to go back outside and start grinding to figure it out. Things have gotten a lot more interesting out here, and by interesting I mean infinitely worse. This is the inside of the car. This is the seam for that tire well inside, where it meets the body, and there are problems. Things are going from bad to worse out here. I kind of wish I would just quit poking and prodding, but just like with the other side, we've gone all the way through the inner fender. It has come all the way up here. I thought I finally hit some good metal, and it turns out that was just the outer layer, the fender layer, where it goes over and is pinch welded to the inner layer, and there's a ton of rust in between. So I'm currently trying to cut all this out, and that it's going to give me access inside here, inside this piece of suspension area here. Luckily this is just sheet metal. It's nothing that's holding this together structurally. I'm going to clean out in here, inspect it, see what needs done in here. Probably weld a patch panel back over that, even though it's open from the rear. Sorry about that. I'm starting to lose my voice. Probably doesn't help that I've been inhaling grinder dust. But anyway, this is the suspension box for the spring. You can see in there where everything comes together. I'm probably going to cut this out. I am probably going to go ahead and clean up in here. I don't know if I'm going to weld a patch panel back in here or not to cover this. This is just superficial. This is just decoration. It's not structural. So I'm going to cut this all off and figure out what I'm going to do going forward. But I think I've pretty much gotten to the point where I've got clean metal now. As always, plenty of healthy metal had to be cut off and sacrificed to get to this point. I never like it, but it is in the name of saving the car in the long run. I have finally gotten this rotten layer of metal off of here. I don't like this. This is just wide open. This seems to, it looks like this outer layer was tying this together through welds, and I don't like that. I'm going to clean this up and get ready to at least put an L bracket in here, if not patch this whole thing all the way around for structural integrity. But I'm going to clean out in there first. Earlier, did you think you heard me accidentally say that I finally hit some clean metal? No. Clearly you misheard me, and or I was joking. Definitely couldn't have been mistaken. But no, I am still cutting and grinding, and things in here are escalating quickly for the worse. Let's see. Oh God. As is usually the case around here, I'm having trouble finding an actual cleaner, but as always, a foaming glass cleaner does amazing. It will take off surface rust and built up gunk and junk, and it actually does a really good job. Here's a little video of the foaming cleaner working its magic. It really does really well. I've said that before. I use it on engines. I use it on a lot of stuff. Just any kind of foaming degreaser that'll get in there and bubble underneath all the dirt and grime. The foaming cleaner is actually doing so well, it ate a rust hole, or ate through a rust hole over here, and is now draining itself, whereas it was pulling up over here. That's how good a job it does. It cleared out some rust and started draining itself. Wait, I don't think that's a good thing. I'm going to jinx myself one more time and say it, but I think I'm finally ready to start welding this outer tire well here. It's pretty much been separated from the inner tire well and the shock tower all the way up almost to the shock tower. Let me show you. That is how much material is still attached without rust. You can see I've had to cut and separate it all the way down to here where this other rail welds in. I had to cut all of this out. So I think I'm going to have to run a patch panel all the way up top, all the way down, tie this in. It's going to be even worse than the other side. Oh man, so much for my 3 or 4 hour day. It's already been longer than that. I am shocked and ashamed of myself. I do not have anything around here. It's a true L bracket. I could have sworn I did. In fact, I thought I had some flat L brackets. I do not. So I'm going to cut this thing up, mount a piece there, mount a piece there, weld them together, or at least I'm going to try. Let's see how this goes. Obviously this isn't beautiful, but I went through and welded this all back together. It's not pretty, but it is pretty strong. I was actually surprised how well it's holding. I did go through and grind down a couple of the spots where I thought were sticking up a little far and might interfere with the rim or something, but I am ready to get to finally doing what I wanted to do when I got here today and start patching up the floor pan. Hallelujah. A little rust reformer and we're done. It took a depressingly long time just to get this part done, and I still haven't even started on this part. Man. Well, I was able to pinch 2 of these little panels together and just put a few little tacks in there just to kind of close that gap to make things a little easier going forward, but everything else has a pretty big gap cut into it, a lot of material missing, so that's the only time I'm going to be able to do that. Now I've got to get on to actually patching. Came up here to the top near the shock tower and put a couple of beads there where some of the metal was still in good shape and could be welded back together. Everything else is going to have to truly have a patch panel put in. I tried to tack these back together and it just exploded. It just burned through. The metal's so thin there, it's not going to happen. I am really dragging. This is a lot of get in the car, get out of the car, get in the car, get out of the car, measure, go find a tool. Oh man, it's kind of driving me crazy. Nobody tell the boy this, but kind of actually need his help. I hate to admit that. This is a lot of work for just me. Oh my God, I need a sheet roller desperately. This is so hard to get to stay in shape and stay in place. But I'm finally ready to weld my first patch panel. For the most part, this patch panel is in and done, except where I have to tie it into the next piece inside and out. I know it's ugly. I wish I had a way to bend sheet metal properly. I got this side pretty tight. This side kept bending and bowing away and I couldn't get it to stick without filling it with weld, but it's pretty strong, so I'm happy enough. All right, I'm back from picking up my daughter from school. Didn't do it in the Mustang. Shocking, I know. I failed something. I can't believe it either. Well, I ran out of welding wire with about an hour of daylight left, and it's about to be dark. So I came through here at the grinder, kind of ground all this down just to see what it would look like and how many holes I would have once I ground out some of the booger welds. And it's actually patched fully. I grounded the inside and the outside. I'll show you the inside. I haven't fully grounded it, but I hit the tops off of all the welds and they're still holding. That's it for today. I'll be back in a few days. I am not going to prime everything this time. I'll just wire brush it if it rusts in the next couple of days. What I legitimately thought would take 4 hours today took 8 to get that much done. Be back in another week or so. We're back. It's another 4 or 5 days later. If you can't tell, we're cold. It is in the teens here in Texas. And we are very confused and uncomfortable. Anything below 70 is cold around here, but yeah, it's in the teens and we're not having fun. We have Junior's car running to warm it up, not only for actual warmth for us so we can run the heater inside, but someone here, we're not naming names, but someone may have left the interior dome light on for like a week or something. But we're not naming names because we don't know who it could have been. It could have been anyone. It could have been one of your mother, your sisters, you, could have been anyone. But anyway, back to work. Hopefully you can hear me over the idling car, but we're back at this, and the goal today is to weld this panel into here and tie all of this together the best we can. If you remember last time, this top layer of metal that tied all this together had to be cut out because it was rotten. We have met with defeat already. We were able to get the outer edges of this patch panel to stick, but we are unable to get these. We tried C-clamps to pinch this in place, but we cannot penetrate that and get that to stick. This is pretty loose, so we're going to cut this off and start all over with a different panel. We're going to have to do more molding and get the panel closer, a tighter fit, because there's just too much gap back here to close that gap. As is usually the case with me, I had a few welds that held perfectly and just would not come out without taking some good, clean, healthy metal with them. And the rest of this is just garbage and nonsense that didn't ever stick at all. These stuck okay. But anyway, that patch panel's out. Time to cut a new one and try again. I'm back with panel 2, which is just panel 1, cut down a little bit so it's a little more manageable. I'm just going to try to get this thing C-clamped into place and get it in here. We finally found our propane torch and heated up these two panels. We hammered the outside panel in and the inside panel out, and we've got a lot closer gap now. Hopefully we can weld this a little better and get this done finally. All right, there it is. There's our finished patch panel. We are finally done under here. We're gonna spray some paint on this and get back inside the car and get to work. This is taking entirely way too long, but it was very important to me to tie this all together and not just leave it open like it was. Hey boy, that patch panel is far from beautiful, but it's beautiful from afar, right?
Not beautiful from afar.
You're a terrible son. Check it out, boy. You can barely even tell it's there, right?
Yeah, barely.
As Junior just pointed out, yeah, the paint she is not wanting to stick in, 17-degree weather. Strange. Finally, after days and days and days, we are back inside the car to try to get all this done. Oh God, it's about time. Just like last time, I'm gonna try to make some patch panels and just bring them all the way up. But unlike on the other side, we may have to put more down this way. We may have to do a lot of sculpting and cutting and tie these in a lot better than we did the other side, because there's a lot more corrosion and rust and damage. I'm not sure how, but I just literally lit the car on fire. That was not good. I'm not sure what lit on fire, but something lit on fire. We weren't able to videotape much, but here's the finished product, or at least this one patch panel. This is tying this floorboard together back with the fender well, and that's all we've got for today. We are frozen and the sun is going down and we're out of time. I am optimistic that tomorrow we can make one more patch panel, bring it all up along here, tie that in together, and this part of this project can be done. Finally. We still have more work to do on the inside, obviously, but we got everything. The fender well's done. We got the rims back on it. The car is on the ground, and we could go drive it if we weren't freezing to death. I don't think we're going to do that today. I think we're going to go inside and try to warm up. And now it is snowing, so I'm not sure how much work we're going to get done on the car tomorrow. As you can see, it has snowed in South Texas. That is not why we are not working on the car today. I woke up with a death rattle in my chest. Some people came into work this week sick, and now I'm sick. So we're not going to go out and enjoy this beautiful weather and play in the snow, or else we would fix the car today in the snow. The snow does not bother us. It's 9 days later. I got extremely sick, spent about a week in bed, and got absolutely nothing done on the car. I was going to get some things done on the car today, but it's rained all day, and now we have a nice combination of heavy rain and fog. I'd like to say I'm going to get the car finished up tomorrow, but the forecast is even worse for tomorrow, so that's probably not going to happen. What I am going to do is I'm going to try to start this thing up for the first time in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to go get the boy from school and hope this thing drives and rides well. Come on, baby. All right. True cold start after 2 weeks of winter. I'm happy about that. Look who I found. Say hello, bud.
Hey.
A second. We're finally back. It's been at least 2 weeks, right? I think this is week number 5 of this entire project, and we're really hoping to finish it up today. Between illness and some family tragedy, things have not been going so well lately, but we are finally back at it, and we're hoping to get this done today. So let's see what we're going to do. For the first time ever, I did not coat every single millimeter of the car in rust preventative primer, and it came back to haunt us today as everything is coated in surface rust. So we've been trying to grind off some rust. We've got this patch panel screwed into place, and I've got the top part of the patch panel in there drawn on a piece of metal. I'm going to cut here in a little bit. Junior's about to weld this in, and he's going to go back and finish welding that stuff on that side. Oh, and I started making a patch panel for down there in the corner. Here is this nightmare of multiple cuts and slashes and holes, and I've made this to go over it. Once we heat it up and bend it in place, it ought to look somewhat decent. Well, we discovered something. We ran out of .035 or 0.09 or 0.9 millimeter wire for our fans over across the pond. Hey, do we have any fans across the pond?
I hope not.
That's rude. Anyway, we switched to a 0.8 millimeter or a 0.030 wire, and we are finding things significantly easier to weld. Thank God. Well, we've got both sides welded up, Frankenstein, monstered back together. This side's already been sanded and cleaned and primed and painted, and we're going to clean this up, prime it, paint it, and call it a day. It has been a long day. So here's the finished product. We are done for the day. I know. No need to tell me how ugly these welds are. I'm aware. But you know what? The car is all one piece. The outside is on the outside and the inside is on the inside. Put a coat of primer on it, let it dry. Put a coat of paint on it, and it's drying. And now we're going to do what this car was designed for. We're going to go cruising. That's it. We are finally done with this nightmare. 5 weeks, I think. We started on January 1st or something. I think we started the new year by starting this back seat, and it has been absolutely hell. We're finally done. Join us here in another 6 months when we do the trunk, right buddy? Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Bye bye.